In this video, I'm going to go over the African Canyon Frontline map. I've chosen this one because compared to the other Frontline missions in Air Arcade, this one has unique elements to it. And these unique elements, they sort of have relevance to ground strike missions as well. So all around, I'm going to just be talking about map tactics, and a lot of these things that I'm going to be discussing, they apply to ground strike and frontline matches as well. So I've got a screenshot of the minimap from in-game of the Africa Canyon Frontline mission. So first off, there's really two major elements that are different about this map to other Frontline missions. One, as I've mentioned before, is that the machine guns don't count. All right. On the frontline area, the machine guns don't count towards the front line, and they don't count towards bleeding tickets. The second major element here are these tank columns that spawn behind the front line on each side. Now, these tank columns, they count to the front line, and they count towards the ticket count as well. And you won't find tank columns like these in the other frontline matches in Air Arcade. It's pretty much unique to this map alone. So something to note about the tank columns that spawn behind, they spawn very grouped up close together at the beginning of the match, and then they start to disperse into a column. So if you can see here, this screenshot is taken at the start of a match. The tank columns are all one big blob basically, and after a while they start to disperse into a tank column and they take different routes. So these tank columns, they have different spawn points and it's randomly generated. I think there's about 3 to 4 different spawn points for them. In this case here, you can see that for the red side, they have one that's right next to the airfield and another that's further out. And on blue side here, you've got 2 that are slightly further out. There are about 2 different spawn points, I believe. Yeah, about 1 to 2 more that are in between these. So when approaching this map, when you spawn in and you see that this is the map generated, going for the ground targets, the tank columns behind, straight off the bat is a good idea because you'll be able to get to the target and the tank columns won't have dispersed yet. So you'll be able to get your bomb drops off and you'll be able to wipe out a lot of targets in one go. And there's a mix of hard targets such as tanks and vehicles such as like armored cars and trucks and whatnot. So trying to get to the tanks, more importantly, as they're grouped up, you can get quite a lot of kills with just a couple of bombs. Now, how you want to approach that, that's up to you. There are different ways. Usually what me and my squadron do is that we get 3 guys in fast ground attack aircraft and we just go straight for them. Straight down the middle, we dive, try get into the canyons here, these in between these large mountains, and then hit the targets. Well, if in this case, if we were the blue side here attacking red side, since the tank columns are spread out, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're both together close in the middle. But since they're spread out, we'll call out who's going to which one, and as we get to the middle of the map, we split up and attack the 2 columns. If you're playing solo, if you're just alone by yourself, trying to go down the middle straight for the target straight away, that might not work out because the enemy fighters are spawning in, and as I've mentioned before, most guys that play Air Arcade, they're just trying to get into the dogfight, so everyone will rush towards the middle. So there's a good chance if you fly in there, someone's going to pick you out, or multiple people usually do pick you out because you're a bomber flying low. They'll hop on you and shoot you down, basically. So one way to get around that is instead of going straight down the middle, you can take your time as you spawn in, because if you're a ground attack aircraft or a bomber, you get a slightly higher spawn altitude. You just take your time, climb it a little bit, wait till the furball starts, and then dive in. What you do by doing that is you trade some time. So some of the targets disperse the amount of targets that are grouped up by the time you reach there. If you take the longer approach, there'll be less basically. That's a trade-off. Another way is you can always fly around the sides. Sometimes people don't bother chasing bombers that are flying to the side, even if they're high or low. You can actually try to mask your marker if you fly low and behind the mountains. You break line of sight with a lot of aircraft, especially if they're just going to the middle into the furball, so you can sneak your way around there. But the same as with the second approach, you trade some time, so some of the targets will disperse, and the opportunity to take out large amounts of hard targets that are close together, you sort of lose a little bit of that. But if you're flying solo, it doesn't really matter, and sometimes there's like a debate whether you want to get all the targets but have a high risk of getting shot down, or you get some of the targets but you have a less risk of getting shot down. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, trying to get the tank columns just because you get a bunch of tanks close together and you'll be able to knock them all out in one go, that's not the only reason why you'd want to go in and hit them straight off the bat. The other thing that I mentioned at the beginning, some principles about ground attack missions in Air Arcade, hard targets, especially if they are closer to the enemy spawn point, they are kind of like worth more in value. They're not worth more in value in tickets. They're worth more in value in the sense that they are harder to reach, therefore harder to destroy. So if you get rid of them early on, or if you get rid of them at any point in the game, really, you save yourself effort and time. You save your team effort and time of destroying them. All right, because by being closer to the spawn point, if you are going in to attack and if you're conducting attacks, and let's say that if this tank column were already dispersed, it wasn't grouped up, you'd take multiple passes to destroy the whole column. In that time, enemies that respawn at the spawn point, they're going to notice you really fast and they're going to have an altitude advantage over you, so you're a very easy target for them. So knocking targets that are closer to the spawn point, there is benefit to it. It's something to keep in mind when doing ground attack, not only for frontline but ground strike missions as well. Now, one extra tip about frontline missions, and it's for all the frontline missions now, really, not just for African Canyon. The AAA, they're pretty deadly now, especially with the past few updates. So my approach to attacking the front line, if you're going for the front line and not for the ground targets first, you want to approach front lines from the sides, all right? Because they're AAA, they overlap in the middle here. You have multiple AAA, they create like a sort of kill zone. If you're the first one to go in, they're all going to be trained on you, and you're going to get hit really hard, really fast. And a lot of times, a lot of people do get shot down. So you want to approach the sides first, and you want to hit the triple A's first. All right. Usually for me, depending on what aircraft, what loadout I have, I pick out the hard targets. So the pillboxes on the side here, it's them and the triple A. I eliminate them first, and then start working on the rest of the line. And as I'm working on the rest of the line, try spot out the triple A and take them out. So yeah. So that wraps it up for this video. It's a bit shorter one than the previous videos. I don't have any other map tactic videos planned. If anybody wants me to go over specific maps, then just ask and I'll do one. They don't take that long. There's not that much to discuss, and there are a couple of maps where I have a couple of strategies and tricks that not many people know about. So if anyone's interested in specific maps, I'll do the video, and if there's something there that I know that most people don't know, I'll put it in there. So thanks for watching.